Welcome to another consultation number 15. It's always exciting to be able to share some great truths with you, and I trust that they will add value to your life. Now, today we want to look at the diagnosing the sick soul. How do we begin to diagnose it? What are some of the reasons why we have some of these symptoms that manifest themselves? Now, I'm going to touch on some of these things because I don't want you to carry guilt, because guilt is in actual fact one of the stresses that can cause some of the symptoms that we mentioned in our last consultation. But I'm mentioning these things not to give you an excuse to think, behave, and act the way you do, but to help you to find a reason why you think, why you feel, and why you have these high stress levels. If you have a reason for it, then according to Isaiah 1:18, come let us reason together. We can reason with God and sort that out. Where do we need to sort it out? In our minds. We need to sort it out within our soul. Now, there is a difference between our soul and mind, but your mind is actually part of your soul. It's part of your personality. It's part of who you really are. And that's what we're really interested in. We are interested in you. We are interested in helping you to live a better quality life. And the only way in which there can be a qualitative life is for us to consider some of these thoughts. So we're going to look at how do we begin to diagnose a sick soul, someone who is disturbed and really deeply troubled. You know, the point is that each and every one of us have been children once upon a time. Each and every one of us have journeyed in life. Every single person has gone through childhood trauma. It could be falling off a bicycle. It could be falling off the bed. It could be being knocked in your head by some other violent child from the next door neighbor. There are childhood traumas that each and every one of us suffer from. We try to take those traumas and we try to put it into the back of our minds, a sort of back burner, so to speak. We seem to bury it in the backyard of our subconscious mind. And it goes in there and we think, oh, we dealt with it. But it's still there, it's festering. And when we go through these various stressful times, these things begin to manifest themselves and make us feel really lousy. And therefore, some of those symptoms we made reference to will begin to surface. Now, childhood trauma, you know, you and I don't really know. I mean, I don't remember what happened in my life when I was 2 years old, when I was 1 year old, when I was 3 years old. The furthest back I think I can remember is when about 4 years old. And only very traumatic things that happened to me when I was 4 years old. I had a convulsion. They say I've never been the same since. But nevertheless, I had a convulsion. And I went to hospital. And I remember, not the convulsion, but I remember being in hospital. I remember my family coming to see me. But I don't remember all the details of my life as a 4-year-old. But there are many things that do stand out simply because they were either high moments, like great things that happened, or very traumatic and sad and tragic things that happen in my family. And therefore, I've experienced those traumas which I've dealt with as I've grown up, but I've buried them in the subconscious. Besides all of that, it's not only what we've experienced in our family life from mom and dad, but also going to school, what the teacher says, what our friends think, what the principal said to us, what the stranger has said to us. Our bad experiences in visiting an uncle or aunt visiting us, or possibly us being exposed to some sort of church activity, going away on a camp and interacting with people that caused a lot of mental agony. All of us have gone through something very similar, and we need to diagnose what's causing these unrealistic levels of worry, anxiety, fear, and stress. Besides the childhood trauma, what about the trauma of adolescence? I mean, when you become an adolescent, you're moving from a child to becoming an adult. And during that adolescency, there are many, many changes that are taking place biologically, neurologically, and physically taking place within your body. So there are certain traumas you go through. There's certain experimentations that a teenager goes through, and then they beat themselves up, and they think they're really bad because they have heard that people who do or act in a particular way are real baddies. So you begin to label yourself based on some very poor choices and some bad behavior, and the result is you become rebellious. Well, what was Israel's problem here? They rebelled against God. It affected them not only as a nation, but it affected their minds. And so our minds are affected through these adolescent traumas. And then, of course, who do we live with? Who do we live with? It could be your partner. It could be if you're living in a hostel with other people that live in the hostel. If you're living in a center, a care center, there are other people you have to deal with. Who do you interact with during the day? Often there are some of the people we interact with, they're not bad people, but they actually add to our stress simply because they don't understand our makeup, they don't understand what we're going through. And therefore, we need to ask the question, who do you live with? Who do you spend a lot of time with? Because the people you spend time with will determine what's actually causing your stress levels. And you must learn how to manage them. They're not bad people. They mean well. But they can actually add to your stress unless you learn to manage them and manage your time with them. And then, of course, the other thing, and that is what brings meaning to your life. If you're living a life that has no purpose and it doesn't fulfill a meaning to you, it doesn't fulfill that longing in your heart, this is really what I want to do, then if it's not bringing meaning to your life, then it simply means that you have no purpose. Why do you keep doing the same things over and over and over again that bring no meaning to your life? So you need to identify the things that bring meaning and purpose and give you a take in life and helps you to carve your niche in life that actually brings a tremendous amount of satisfaction. That is vitally important. And then, whom would you depend on in a crisis? Ask yourself that question. If I was facing a crisis, who would I depend on? Would I depend on a relative, a friend, a doctor? Who would I depend on? You have to ask yourself that question because the answer to that question will also determine what brings comfort to you and what would cause stress in the midst of a crisis. These are some of the ways in which we can learn to diagnose our sick souls, because all of us are carrying a disease of the soul, and that disease is rebellion against God. So come, let us reason together. So if you're feeling worthless and down and despondent and that nobody cares, nobody understands you, there is a wonderful, wonderful poem written by Myra Brooks Welsh, a very, very well-known poem, and I'm actually going to read it to you, and I hope it will be a great blessing to you. This is what it says. It's entitled, "The Touch of the Master's Hand." It was battered and it was scarred, and the auctioneer thought it hardly worth his while to waste his time on the old violin, but he held it up with a smile. "What am I bid, good people?" he cried. "Who starts the bidding for me? $1, $1, do I hear two? $2. Who makes it $3? $3 once, $3 twice, going for $3. But no, from the room far back a grey-bearded man came forward and he picked up the bow. Then wiping the dust from the old violin and tightening up the strings, he played a melody pure and sweet as the angel sings. The music ceased, and the auctioneer, with a voice that was quiet and low, said, "What now am I bid for this old violin?" as he held it aloft with its bow. $1,000, $1,000, do I hear two? $2,000, makes it $3, $3,000, $3,000 once, $3,000 twice, going and gone, said he. The audience cheered, but some of them cried, "We just don't understand. What changed its worth?" Swift came the reply, "It was the touch of the Master's hand." And many a man and woman with life out of tune, all battered and bruised with hardship, is auctioned cheap to a thoughtless crowd, much like the old violin. A mess of pottage, a glass of wine, a game, and he travels on. He is going once, he is going twice, he is going and almost gone. But the Master comes, and the foolish crowd never can quite understand the worth of a soul and the change that is wrought by the touch of the Master's hand. Let's come and reason together and allow the Master to work in our minds so that we can become the people that He wants us to be. God bless you, and Thanks for joining us for this consultation. Until next time, God be with you.